Hello and welcome. It is Wednesday, April 17th at 6:07 p.m. We are here in the Nashua North Boardroom for the 2024-2025 budget hearing. We have nobody in the audience, was per usual. However, I did get some emails today that I would like to share with everybody. Um, while doing a lot of research on how our minutes are all set up, I discovered that one of the things that we're really supposed to be doing is sharing these emails and including them in our minutes. And here we are. My name is Sage, and I am a junior at Nashua South, and I am currently part of the varsity field hockey and lacrosse teams here at Nashua South. My freshman year, I decided to participate in playing hockey for the school since I had been playing the past 10 years of my life, and it was a sport that I was very fond of. For those 10 years, I had been playing on a boys' team, so I was comfortable playing with them, and I blended in well with the team. The second I stepped onto the ice for the high school team, I realized it was not going to be the same. What used to be getting excited for games and practices turned into having anxiety attacks to the point where I didn't even want to step out of the locker room because I was so scared of getting hurt. It was not fair to me that I was a 100-pound freshman playing against 190-pound seniors that were not afraid to hurt me. Within the first 3 weeks of me playing, I had bruised my hip bone, gotten many pucks to my chest and neck, and lost the love for the sport I had been playing my whole life. During the season, I also felt very isolated and kept away from the team just due to the fact that I had to have my own locker room, which in most cases was across the rink from the rest of the team and my coaches. With a girls' team, I would feel like a part of the team and feel like I belong there, which is what I deserve, as well as all the other girls in the same situation as me. Another thing that is not fair to me or any of the other girls willing to play for this girls' hockey team is that our college opportunities for playing hockey are getting stripped away from us. Compared to these boys who are bigger, stronger, and faster than us, we will never get the opportunity to show what we have to offer because we don't even have the options to play against our own gender for an even playing field. Having this opportunity for the girls' hockey team could potentially change the course of our future in the sense that we will have a better chance of being noticed by college coaches because we'll be playing against girls just like us in the same way that all the other sports at South have girls' teams, so that the competition is fair. I hope that you'll take into consideration what I've shared with you and hope you'll realize that many girls in the school district are depending on this team to continue the sport they love and for the sake of their future so they don't lose the love for the childhood sport like I did. Thank you for your time, Sage. And one of the reasons I wanted to share this wasn't just because it was a student, which to me, it's important to really lift up their voices, especially when they feel it's important enough to bring to such a boring meeting. Um, and she is unable to be here today because she is actively in a game. So, wishing her lots of luck. And I would love to ask, what are the chances of a girls' team ever being looked at as part of the budget?
So we've had these conversations. Athletic Director Gingras has been researching it over the last couple of years. There have been polls. We met with a group of interested parents and players and a few months ago, and we talked about this upcoming year of some proactive steps we can take to increase some of the numbers and then go from there. So we're looking at it, if there's interest growing next year, that it's possibly the year after. It's a little more complicated than just putting the numbers into the budget. It's whether it's a co-op, it's there's athletic director Gingras has done extensive research on the possibilities and hopefully growing that team.
I would absolutely love if this is something we could put on the agenda for a future board meeting just to hear more about and ask questions because I know I am all for anytime girls want to play those much scarier, in my opinion, sports. I want to make sure they have those opportunities.
I just wanted to be known, we both Ms. Gingras, myself, Mr. Posca has been in meetings. We're all supportive of growing a program. So and then it's just how do we do it proactively with the Interscholastic League. It might mean some co-ops, and just because the size of our high schools, there's just other hoops, but we are very supportive of hopefully growing a program. So we're in full support. It's not because we have no interest in it. It's just a lot more than saying, can we set aside X amount of dollars and start a program? It's bigger than that.
Absolutely, and I'm actually equally interested. That's why I would love to learn more about it and what the steps are and the measures are towards achieving that goal. Because as we all know, a goal without a date or steps or anything else is nothing more than a dream. So, speaking on the board itself, would anybody like to go over a summary, or do people have any
Can I just
questions?
ask a quick question about that topic? Did that come up during Ms. Gingrich' presentation on athletics? Hockey?
No, it did not.
It didn't come up then?
Well,
It was presented as a future
Future.
consideration.
she didn't ask for
Guys.
that in her budget.
Before we go any further, I need to take the roll, I think.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That is important.
That's okay. Ms. Bishop? I'm here. Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Prin?
Here.
Ms. Daniels-Williams?
here.
Mr. Claffey?
Here.
Ms. Darling?
Here.
Ms. Gilio?
Here.
I'm here. Ms. Raymond?
Here.
And also Dr. Andrade is here, Mr. Posca, and Mr. Donovan. All right. Okay, go. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Can I just ask another, I'm sorry, I
was going to respond to your question. So yes, she said she had it on her slide for next year, but she did not have a number for us of how much money would be needed to earmark should, interest increase.
But it was discussed then.
Yeah, because I had asked also about, we anticipate that the governor is going to sign this bill that requires kids to play on the team that matches their biological sex at birth, which means that girls will no longer be allowed to play on boys' teams at all. So I was curious about how we could handle that, and we talked about maybe making wrestling co-ed and some other things.
And then I had one other question. Can you tell us more about the reading of emails and what the RSA says?
So if you would like to go onto our website and go to our policies and procedures. I had it pulled up, and of course it auto-scrolled right back to the top. Email addresses are considered public correspondence with the board under New Hampshire's Right to Know Law, RSA Chapter 91-A. Email be noted in the board meeting minutes and will be accessible to members of the public.
So I was just wondering, the actual reading of the emails, is that the same thing?
Have you ever seen us make an email public?
I just asked a question about the reading of emails. I just think if we were to read at certain times of the year, depending on the issue, if we were to read all of the emails, would be here for hours and hours.
I
It's hard
agree.
to-
tell you what
I
we've
read
done in
one.
the past.
Just to be clear on the right to know
There's a
law.
precedent. Right.
So we have read emails into the record before if it's a question that we want answered. However, the right to know law says that emails to the board are public. When we approve the consent agenda, we approve making those public and available, and it's really common for people to send a request to Dr. Andrade's office for a copy of all the emails on a particular topic or to a certain individual or to the board as a whole. I think Ms. Kinsella and Ms. Porter spend, a significant portion of their day gathering those emails and sending them out. And occasionally we'll get an email from an attorney asking us to gather them ourselves.
But we're not required to read them
No.
publicly.
No,
That's all.
we just, on our consent agenda, are required to approve that those emails from the last time we had a board meeting exist, and they are now publicly available.
So at the beginning of our meetings, when we asked to waive, that we've included emails in that waiving.
when we
So the-
approve the consent
Yeah,
agenda.
the emails are always available from Right to Know. There are occasionally times where emails will come to me or to the full board. Like I can think of a handful of times that like Mr. Marcoux hasn't been able to be here and has said like, can you read this into the record? And I usually get beaten to the punch by a teacher who reads it for him. But we've all done that before. We've read emails into the record if people have asked because they can't make it to public comment. But all of the emails are accessible to Right to Know, and they end up, yeah, they just stay forever and ever in the Board of Ed email.
Right. I think the only caveat to that is FERPA. So there are federal protections for student privacy. So, anything that if a parent emails the board and says they have a concern with their child, that email, anything identifiable about that email is not publicly available, right? Because it's private. So, but that's why Dr. Andre's office has Ms. Kinsella and Ms. Porter who actually go through and look at the emails and make sure that we're not accidentally releasing any of that information.
I asked because maybe I misheard at the beginning that we weren't following we weren't honoring some RSA in the way we were conducting.
So, and as Heather had just said, that we are in compliance, and that's something that like I can ask her a million questions about later because she understands it way more than I do, or she's welcome to explain now. In my reading of this sentence, it would be, the email be noted in the board meeting minutes and accessible to members of the public. I would think that that means that they would be included in the packet that's downloadable online. But that being said, it's such a little nuanced thing that has nothing to do with budget.
And it's not something that I'm aware of any other municipality or school board in the state doing. So, and I think that might have to do with volume and privacy and making sure. Can I go back to the ice hockey question and the athletics budget? Is there a number, or is it too early in the process to have an idea of what would need to be earmarked?
Yeah, it's too early it could be anywhere from 20,000 to 50,000.
Okay. 50,000 is almost a teacher. Thank you.
I have a question. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yes, please, Ms. Lampier.
Well, I'm sorry to ask this question. I wasn't here for the budget meetings. I apologize to all the people who presented because, they put a lot of work into the presentations, and it was a shame I wasn't here. But I wanted to ask about the special ed middle school coordinator, because when I watched the budget hearing and looking through the documents that we received, I didn't see if that was going to be paid for out of special funds or out of the operating budget.
That is in the operating budget.
It is, okay. Yeah, because I wasn't sure if it was one of the extra people that one of the new people were getting. Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. Sorry, I feel like I'm dominating. Do we have a sign out for if we do in fact have public come in? Great. Thank you, Mr. Claffey. I just was curious. You're on it. Well done. Great. Yeah, Wednesday night brain. So I do have a budgetary question though.
Please.
Are we bouncing all over the place with our questions, or do you have
I
a
love
specific
bouncing
order?
all over the place. Welcome to my brain for the night.
Okay, so last night policy met, the policy committee met, and we talked quite a bit about minutes. And one of the changes to the law this year that we are updating our policy, and you guys will see this at the next board meeting, is that the Right to Know law now requires that the district generate a list and have it publicly available of all sealed minutes from the beginning of time. And that list be updated on an ongoing basis based on whether or not the board unseals minutes. And so the compiling of that list, and then the maintenance of the list, and then the compiling of the minutes, and the review of the minutes, and the maintenance of that is a large task. And we learned in our discussion that I think it was 2 budgets ago, the superintendent's office had 2.5 people with the halftime person or 0.6 something person dedicated to doing kind of minutes and board work, and that position was eliminated. I forget if it was 1 or 2 budget cycles ago. But the policy committee agreed last night that we think that given some of the increased legal requirements that are now coming out, that we think we probably want to add at least a half a person back in, or whatever Dr. Andrade and Mr. Donovan think the budget can accommodate. So that was a lengthy way to say, is there a half position in the budget? Can we add one to the budget? What type of cost are we looking at? I see your office being, I see you losing a person out of this.
I'm totally in support of it. I think the burden on Ms. Kinsella and Ms. Porter on just minutes is incredible. I mean, they spend more than 50% of their time on minutes and board materials as opposed to other functions, as opposed to what that exact number would be. I have to ask Mr. Donovan. But in talking to Ms. Kinsella, I think there's two things that we have to be cognizant of. The project of going back to the beginning of time, of like going through, that might be a special project, that's a dedicated, that might be contract work, quite honestly. And then on top of the work of something, because once that project is done, then you might not need that need anymore going forward. So I think we just have to be strategic on how do you accomplish that work as opposed to being proactive in that 0.5 person or whatever that's going to be, of who's taking notes and who's responding specifically to BOE emails, needs, agendas, that aspect of it. And again, it's nothing against Ms. Kinsella and Ms. Porter.
No, I think they're
Absolutely
doing a wonderful
fabulous, but
job.
they are stretched.
And I just, as we were looking at the new policy, which goes from half a page to like 5 pages with very specific legal requirements, we thought, this sounds like a whole person's job. We should ask about it tomorrow night at budget, since we're in budget season.
But as far as like, we're currently asking for a 4.49, I don't know if that would go up to a 4.491. I don't, like,
Well, I mean, assuming it's 25,000 for a 0.5 person, there wouldn't be too many benefits with that. Yeah, you'd go to 4.5 or something.
4.5 being the percentage we're requesting from the alderman. Do we need to make a motion to add something like that to the budget individually?
Any changes to the budget that has been presented would have to be done with motions and approved by the group.
All right. So okay. I'll wait until we get to that portion of the evening. Start a list of motions.
No, we're still looking for,
I just, as we kind of go through that, I also want us to be cautious of like, we're starting at 4.49 and we're going to 4.5. And if we get up to the end of the night, it's 5.7, like just because we keep on adding and we don't get a number, that means things are getting cut. And then we have to reprioritize. So I just want to, again, be cautious of going back to the needs of the students. If we're adding these things at the end, the administration has gone through and said, this is what we feel we need. And as the BOE starts adding stuff and we say the Board of Aldermen only account for, budget comes in at 4.1 and we're cutting another $600,000. So I just want us to be cautious as we're making these recommendations. If we don't get the full amount from the BOA, then there's going to have to be another discussion on what are we cutting and what's those priority areas.
So following up on that, is it your preference that we leave it alone and let your office try and figure it out and then come back to us if it becomes an overwhelming task?
I don't think it's a bad ask. Again, I don't think that's a bad number, but I just want to be careful if that's starting right now over the course of this hearing, that the number balloons. If we don't get that number, we have to reprioritize, again, bringing it back to the board on what's going to be the priorities. And again, going back to what's the biggest impact for students.
Well, agreed. I would rather
And I
save
just,
teachers at the same time.
dealing with the individual numbers here, you certainly have the right to add what you want. So let's just call we're at the 4.49, 4.5 now. If you add another 600,000 and go to 5%, and then the aldermen give us 4.5, can we cut all the things you just added? Or are you going to say, no, we want those things, which you can do, and then we got to go find 600,000. So I just want you to think about anything you add. If we don't get the number, do we get to choose? Or then we have to have another meeting and we're going to pick and choose. We're not going to have a ton of time. If you look at the budget process, the aldermen aren't going to approve it until around June 10th or June 12th. So not that time is everything, but, are these going to be considered above and beyond things? Or are you going to want administration to say, okay, we're going to put the things the board wants and we'll have to find other things to take out? So that's
Maybe
just
next
a
year.
cautionary tale, that's all.
I would say maybe next year we should consider doing some ranked choice voting in budget. I would say, I know you've had a few questions, and then Miss Bishop.
And so you just cautioned us about adding things to the budget, but I was thinking maybe we can add a grant writer that can cover some of these things. You know what I'm saying? I'm at a position that pays for the position. So like if we get a grant writer, hopefully in all actuality, they will come with not only their salary in grants to cover not only their position, but also do other things that we need done in our budget. Is that something that we can add?
Well, you can add anything you want. You can add a grant writer, but that will go in this budget as a cost. Unless you're going to assume that there's a certain amount of money they're going to bring in. Am I going to then reduce the budget by the cost of the grant writer because we're going to promise that whoever we bring in is going to get at least what they're paid in benefits? It's a hard thing to do, especially when you don't even have someone, we don't know who that person's going to be.
So would that be something that we would separately ask if we possibly could from the aldermen?
No, I mean, if you really want a grant writer, then you can put a motion forward and put a grant writer in the budget. You can then make the claim that we hope to get enough grants to cover the cost of the grant writer, but you can't guarantee that.
How does the board feel about that? Like, I'm one of 9.
I have a question on it, because we had a grant writer that we shared with the city for many years, Miss Davies, and she was fantastic.
Absolutely.
But then, the city stole her from us, right?
Well, yes and no. Because it goes in waves. And so, it depended on needs. So there was a time where Miss Davies, pre-COVID and pre-ESSA money, was looking for smaller grants, right? Like $5,000 here, $100,000 here. Like those are smaller grants. And then ESSA came around and we had a lot of money coming in, and there was no real need of grant writing over the last 3 years, to be honest with you, because money was coming in. And then the need right now is more on the city side because there's a lot more infrastructure grants coming out. So the need in our conversation with the city was that's where she's most needed now. The other aspect of where we can't forget is that we're all grant writers. Mr. Posca, Dr. Safdie, they write a lot of grants. Perkins, grants. So I don't think we need a sole position. We were very fortunate to have a grant writer in Nashua. Most districts don't. And most districts go out, and if you see a need, you write a grant. So I wouldn't, I would be, again, caution. I think there's a way to still apply for grants and receive money into the district without adding another person. So I would caution us and say that wouldn't be our biggest need. If you were asking me for a recommendation on where we need to invest, it wouldn't be a grant writer.
So, but now that the ESSER funds are gone, that we've spent those over the last 3 years, now we're filling a budget that we have to fill those holes with money. Now that everybody is trained to write grants and everything, but is that something that the administration's ready to take on?
That wouldn't be, my recommendation is I wouldn't add that position to our infrastructure at this point in time. I think if we were pursuing grants, that we have enough capacity to write grants and apply for grants.
Ms. Bishop, you were next. Then it's going to be
Okay, Ms. Lampier can go.
Ms. Lampier.
So I would just wanted to say that, Mr. Donovan has a lot of experience working with the city. And, the mayor asked for 4%, and there's a reason why we're asking for 4.49. It probably sounds a lot better to the Board of Aldermen and not like we're asking for like so much. So I would be in favor of leaving it the way it is and holding off on the, on getting someone to help Ms. Kinsella and Ms. Porter, and also the grant writer. They both would be dream positions that we would really love to have in the district, but I don't think that this is the right time for that.
Out of curiosity, do you guys have any rebuttal that you would like to add to that? Do you feel that it would be beneficial to go? I know Dr. Andre, you had just said the grant writer position, your recommendation would not necessarily be a yes, but is Ms. Porter and Ms. Kinsella's time back to you worth the increase ask?
Yes, yeah, I mean, yes, on that one. I mean, I think the demands have changed, and again, and we've had the conversation where it was budgeted 2.5, and we just couldn't find the right infrastructure, and I think there's a lot more demands on that office that are outside supporting the superintendent's office in the district. So, I mean, I wouldn't be against that, and again, I think the aspect of going from a 4.49 to a 5, like it's $25,000-$30,000, and it might be again where with permission of the BOE that we're going in to say at a future F&O meeting or HR meeting to say, can we move $25,000 from this line to another line in order to support that? But I tell the building principals when we're moving forward in our budget, like think revenue neutral. So if you want something new, what's not working, stop investing in that and then invest in something new. So I think within the 4.49, I think we could think about if we're seeing potential savings to within our bottom line, same thing we do with our households, make it work. It wasn't planned on day one, but again, it's $25,000, $30,000. It might not be that big.
I love how you just say it's like it's like a dash of salt. For me, that's a lot of money. Oh, all
But I
right.
like
It
how
is,
he
but
said,
that's why I want to be careful. Like I don't want to keep on adding. I
Yeah.
think we have to live within
Getting
a
a little
limit,
salty.
right? And because it is
Exactly.
because
Right after.
$25,000 adds up. If there's 10 requests of $25,000, that's $250,000. So we don't want to steam snowball either.
That's like that quick trip to Target that just gets out of hand.
and
That's a dollar.
can we
check.
roll them both into one whole position instead of getting a 0.6? I like that idea. Because
I've had a question for a little bit now. We have new members on the board who haven't gone through a budget process yet. Do you mind just giving a little bit of education about what happens if we send off a budget to the Board of Aldermen that is not approved? Just for their edification.
Yes, so after this board approves the budget and then goes, the mayor's office has our budget as it stands now. If there's any changes made to it tonight, then we would change that to the mayor. So the mayor then makes a recommendation. So let's just say, for example, here we have a 4.49. The mayor may recommend a 4. He may recommend a 4.9. We don't know. But he'll make a recommendation. Sometimes it's what has been sent over from the Board of Ed. Sometimes it's slightly different than that. Then the powers to be here are the Board of Aldermen. So the Board of Aldermen go through, they review each one of the budgets, they meet with each one of the departments, go through the process. They then make the final vote. So they will vote on whatever percent they feel that the city can afford or whatever reason they decide. At that point in time, if they make any cuts, then they're just going to make a dollar cut. So they'll say, here's minus 200,000. Comes back to us and we figure out where the 200,000 is going to come from. If they add something, they'll typically tell you what they want to add. Since I've been here, we've only had it added once, and that's when they said, we want to give you more money for deferred maintenance to help fix the buildings. So they gave us some money once for that. But typically, they don't do that. I have no idea what they're thinking of doing this year, though, depends on where they feel with the mayor. The mayor said 4%, we're coming in higher. I'm not sure how much higher than that they would like to go. But that's up to that body.
They did give us money one year for ELL teachers. It was
Yes, you're right.
$250,000
That's
that was specifically earmarked. Because typically when they give us more money, they don't say, like, you have to spend it on this or we're taking it back. But that year it was, you have to hire ELL teachers or you don't get it. And we did.
It wasn't our full ask, though.
No, it was like half of our ask or something.
Miss Jalio?
I just want to say that in a time when we have already pink slipped teachers and are going to perhaps have larger classes, which directly affects our students, I'm not going to be in favor of adding anything. I think there may be other ways to factor in and find a way to provide what we need, but I just I was at the policy meeting last night, and I understand the situation with the secretaries at central office, but I can't justify asking for these positions based on the fact that we're already cutting teachers and we're increasing class sizes, and that's our students that are being affected by this. So, if you want to know how I feel about this, there it is.
Absolutely.
If I may.
Please.
So I thank you for that comment. I just want to really give a lot of credit to our administration, our building principals, our directors, our assistant superintendents. They put a lot of thought and effort into what was presented in coming up with this number. And there was already, as you said, we've already eliminated a lot of positions to come up with this, number, or transformed the way that we're doing business. So this number is a thoughtful number. It's just not something that we threw together and just keep on adding and asking. It was a hard process. And that's where some teachers, some building principals are saying, I need this, but I'll give up that in order to keep it level. So, and a lot, as we went through over the weeks, is that a lot of the increases of the 4.49 is contractual. It's things that we were obligated to pay. It's not a lot of new additions. This was currently in place, so we had to rethink on how we're providing services in order to come up with this number. It's not major ask, or it goes back to those priority areas of, number one, bolstering our tier 1 instruction, our ELL services, supporting special education, and then those are our main 3 areas, and that's the result of this. And as you said, it's increased some class sizes in certain areas in order to weigh off increasing class sizes, eliminating a regular education teacher and adding an ELL teacher or a special education teacher because that was a bigger need.
Raymond?
Thank you. Can I ask a follow-up question to that? It might be that PowerPoint. When we're talking about teachers and class sizes, you have presented to us a projected class size for the elementaries chart, and I'm still worried about some of the numbers on there if we go ahead with this budget. Like, I think there's an Amherst Street class that's third grade of 31 point something students, another one at Dr. Crisp of 30 students. I'm really, really worried about getting those elementary classes above 20, even 5. I think 25 is tough.
So there was an update to that
Oh, do I have it?
internally. You don't
Oh.
have it. So we worked it to make sure that there's the proper, like Dr. Crisp or Amherst or Birchill, that there's an appropriate amount of FTEs of teachers in that building to offset that 30 number or 25 number. So it comes out still an average class size at the elementary level. It's still going to be around 18.2. There's no classes right now, just doing the straight math, that's higher than 25 at the elementary level.
Okay.
So there's enough teachers in the budget to keep class sizes. There's a couple that are around the 25, but there's none at 27 at the elementary level, mostly around 21, 22. And then again, where that average is, it's a 2-track school like a Mount Pleasant or another school that has 28 students, it's 2 classes of 14.
Yeah,
So we
that's
won't have-
tough.
So that's where some might be lower just based on the math of we're not going to have 28 kids in a class. So we need 2 teachers.
Okay, great. No, that makes me feel so much better. I think 20 is like ideal, 25 is manageable, 28 8-year-olds, you couldn't pay me enough to do that. I don't know how they do it.
So we were really cognizant looking at the amount of elementary FTEs or teachers at that level that it's mostly low 20s, high teens right across the board.
Ms. Lampier. That reminded me that when I read through this, I actually was worried about the middle school figures. And I know there are some, the highest one here is 28.5 average at Fairgrounds for 6th grade. And I didn't know if that was something that was going to be changed or if you had worked on that at all yet.
We're still tracking the enrollment,
Uh-huh.
but we know it's an area that we are still watching if we have to make adjustments. The same thing once we get the high school numbers, whether we're running a class or adding teachers.
So you would have the people to do that if you need to.
We have we know that we would have to adjust things within the 4.49 in order to make that happen.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
So I just want to ask about the full-time teachers, right? So we're budgeting for how many full-time teachers?
In the operating budget, that's operating budget, doesn't include grant teachers, so there's more than that. There's
Okay.
about 962 teachers. Now,
Okay.
that include 0.8 people, some 0.8 people, whatever, but there's still 960 teachers. You put in the grant people, we still have over 1,000 teachers, well over 1,000. So the total number of teachers is not really changed by that much. We reduced middle school teachers, we reduced elementary teachers, we increased DLL teachers, we had family engagement coordinators, and there were some people on ESSER that were teachers that were moved into, let's say, the high school, et cetera. So when you look at the total, it's really not that big a difference. It's more about moving them around to where we need them. So if you're a 6th grade English teacher and that's all you are, then you may have been, I hate to say it, but maybe repurposed, so to speak. We need our children are changing. The needs of the children are changing. We need to move and provide the right types of teachers.
And that's what I was thinking. So how many more teachers do we need for ELL or according to the budget? I know we budgeted for the 992, and then we have the grant ones. Is there still more teachers needed, or do we?
Well, we have this year, we have additional 15 ELL teachers in the budget versus what we had last year, okay? Might we need more next year? Maybe, but once again, you gotta find them. Putting a number in a budget and then not being able to find the people doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So 7 brand-new ones and 8 moved over from ESSER.
Dr. Andrade?
So just along that line, in Mr. Chopra and Ms. Booton's presentation, they showed like 14 new positions this year in the anticipation of possibly another 5 next year. So we also know we're being conservative in our planning and building our infrastructure, that we probably need more ELL teachers next year, but we're comfortable in the number that we presented this year. So same thing where Ms. Jingers presented a 3-year coaching stipend increase. It's the same thing with the ELL, and speaking with the DOJ, it's going to take us multiple years in order to get to the point of full capacity.
Very understandable. Thank you for explaining it to me, because being new, I just thought that we were budgeting for, that we were not asking for as much as we needed.
All right. Anyone else on the board like to ask any questions, comments? Tell me your opinions. Ms. Lampier.
I'm sorry, because this might not be, it might not be strictly a budget question, but I know that we budgeted money to pay the teachers extra if they work, if they substitute during their free periods. And of course, I understand the need for that. But at the same time, we're trying to move towards a collaborative teaching approach. And especially at the middle school, they have, all these changes with the leveling and stuff like that. And I didn't know if you guys, if you guys think there might be any issues with having the teachers substitute.
So Mr. Donovan kind of addressed, like, a lot of that money came from ESSER, and so how do we build that into the operating? But we also know it was, I agree, I think our largest investment, like, is in our educators, our adults, our paras, our secretaries, and the more that they can meet and collaborate is the best professional development possible, right? So in a perfect world, they wouldn't be subbing in a different class if we had substitutes, or if we had enough people were coming to work and not ill, or I don't want people coming to work ill, but like, so, but we are very cognizant of what that number was. But we also want great instruction for our kids. So we don't want kids in study halls if we can avoid it. So there is a number that we did put into the operating budget that covers some of the costs, but not at the rate or the overall rate, that not money rate, of what we were able to cover at ESSA. So we're very conservative in the number that we put in for our substitute line to cover that if need be. But hopefully we'll be able to hire enough teachers. We'll have enough substitutes that come in that will allow our teachers to collaborate during the day.
Is there, I mean, I understand being a teacher, you might not always make the amount of money that you want. And people might say, oh, I'll do the subbing, I'll give up my free period. That would be great. Is there any kind of a limit on how often our teachers could do that? I mean, because I would not like to see them give up all their free periods.
So we had an MOU with the union depending on what they, like, if you were teaching a class during your free period, that was one rate, because we couldn't find a teacher and we wanted to provide good instruction. However, if we couldn't find a substitute, I said, hey, Ms. Lampier, can you cover period 5 today just to make sure there's supervision? That was a different rate. Like, that was a much lower rate. That was just making sure there was supervision. So they can give up, a teacher can give up their planning period or to cover, but they could do it 5 days a week if they wanted to, because that's their contractual time that they own. And it's mostly, quite honestly, at the high school. It doesn't, like at the elementary, it doesn't happen because you only have one period off, right? And so, or it's just, the coverage is a lot different. It's mostly a high school issue.
All right, thank you.
Raymond?
Thank you. That triggered a question in my brain. What is the substitute rate that we're paying our substitutes this year or in the next year? And then what is we're also using a contracting agency, right? Are we still hiring people directly?
Well, we have multiple ways to sub, as was just mentioned, teachers subbing for teachers. We have an agency Through that agency, teacher subs receive $90 a day. That contract ends at the end of June. We'll be we'll be negotiating with them over the next couple of months, probably. So that rate may change. But until the negotiations are done, that's the current rate. And then there's some, when paras sub for teachers, which happens more in the elementary, there's a rate in the contract. It varies, depends on how long you work.
What about like and I'm aging myself, but in the past it used to be we'd have like parents who came in and substitute taught, or we'd have, college students who are on break who would sign up to substitute. Are we still doing that
Yeah, but the agency hires them, so they work for the agency.
universally?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Mr. Claffey?
We're jumping around, right?
Yes, we
Okay.
are.
I was just looking at the transfer from grant funding list of positions, and I was just wondering, the secondary curriculum coach, I don't know what page this is, but Mr. Posca, maybe, is this a position for middle school through high school or just high school? I don't mean to put you on the spot,
Well, the transfer is a middle school secondary coach, so I think we transferred one from out of a grant into the operating budget. But it would be a 6-8 coach,
just 6 to 8, not high school?
right? The high schools have the head teachers.
Okay.
So this is
And can I ask what subject area that is?
social studies.
And they would be working at the 3 middle schools?
As they currently do, it was moved from ESSER into the operating budget.
Okay.
All right. I really appreciate everyone's patience in letting us jump back and forth. I know that it is not nearly as structured as a lot of our meetings are, but I personally have learned more in this budget hearing than I have in the last several years of doing budget. So I'm glad we've done it this way so far. Do we have any public comment tonight? Maybe. Yeah. All right. Feel free if anyone would like to come up and join us on our back and forth. That being said, anyone have any more questions, comments, concerns, opinions? That is the least amount of opinions I've ever seen in one room. I didn't know it was possible. All right. So are we looking for a motion to approve or send to the alderman?
No, we close out this meeting and then we go into the special board meeting.
Yes.
We won't stop the tape. We're just gonna close this out, keep running. I'll just pick it up and then any comments or questions, and I'm looking for a motion to blah, 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 blah.
All right. Well, in that case, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I'll make, it was me, sorry.
I said I was looking for a motion. Skip this step. Either way.
Like it, Mr. Claffey?
Do we
You
have
can
two
make the
names written
motion.
down?
Yes, Heather and Neil.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion adjourned at 6:55 p.m.
No, I'm just gonna wait to make sure we're still okay with are we still good? Okay. All right, so now I'm going to call this special Board of Ed meeting to order. It is 6:55. We're in the Nashua North Boardroom. This seems a bit redundant, but Ms. Lampier, can you do the roll call?
Sure. Ms. Bishop,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Here.
Ms. Bryn,
Here.
Ms. Daniels-Williams,
Here.
Mr. Claffey, Ms. Darling,
Here.
Ms. Gilio.
Here.
I'm here, and Ms. Raymond.
Here.
Okay, and we still have Dr. Andrade, Mr. Posca, and Mr. Donovan. So maybe you guys can go home sometime before midnight tonight. We'll see.
We'll aim for it. So I just see all the words written there. I know that it was thought through. So we just sat through the public hearing for budget. We had a lot of questions, a lot of summary. Assuming there are no other comments or questions? Okay, so I would be looking for a recommendation, well, a motion to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget in the amount of 131,061,021, a 4.49% increase over, no, that's not what I want to say, over the fiscal year 24 budget as presented to go to the Board of Aldermen.
So moved.
Second. Just so
Well,
you know,
I'm gonna let
I
Ms.
wrote that
Lanphier do it.
whole number down so that if to say it, I'd be able to like read it out. 131 million. I was prepared.
We can do that roll call.
Okay. So I have Ms. Gilio and Ms. Darling.
Yes. Okay. No comments or questions?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
So this represents only our costs, and then the city is responsible for all of the benefits, retirement, health insurance, et cetera, that is associated with that. Do you know, out of curiosity, what that number is?
That number is approximately about $50 million.
Anything else? Okay, so on the motion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? You're opposed? Ms. Daniels-Williams is opposed to the budget. Okay, so motion passes. It'll get sent off to the Board of Aldermen, and we'll see where we end up.
Oh, okay.
Put your mic on.
Sorry. I agree.
Okay,
So
thank
you're
you.
in support, you're in support. Okay, so 9-0, passes.
Okay.
Still. Okay, so anything else? Does anyone want to do anything else in this meeting?
Well, just, I don't have it with me tonight, but I think maybe there's two other pieces to the budget that will be in the budget book that you should essentially approve. One's a revenue budget, just an estimate of the revenue. And then there's the special revenue funds, okay? Which most of that is the food service special revenue fund, but I'll share that with you, and then maybe we could do it at the next board meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Raymond?
Thank you. When is the Board of Education presentation of the budget to the Board of Aldermen?
It's in one of these
We
pages.
just got the email today.
Oh,
As a matter of fact.
perfect.
May 12th, is that? Hold on.
I thought it was the 17th.
Tuesday in May.
Can someone email that to me?
21st is Tuesday in May.
I think it's the one before that.
Happy birthday.
May 21st.
It is May
It is May
21st.
21st. Wow.
Okay.
Big day for celebration.
You'll be in Chelmsford, won't you?
No, not that night.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Ms. Daniels-Williams got it that time.
Yes, definitely.
I will
Okay,
give
so
it.
Ms. Gilio, Ms. Daniels-Williams, all those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes.